right, good morning, everybody. Today is Friday. Yay, it's Friday, February 27th, 2015. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Friday. We made it again. I didn't think it was going to happen. And yes, I am remembering my days correctly. I actually thought yesterday was Wednesday, so it was a bonus for me. We fast forwarded to Friday today. It is a balmy 8 degrees here, gone up from 2 degrees when I woke up this morning. So I think we're having a heat wave. Hey, I just saw too. Here's something to look forward to. I believe March 8th is spring ahead for daylight savings time. I have been noticing that if I open my eyes around 6:30, it's already light out. So that means we are hopefully coming out of this long, dark, cold tunnel that we've been in for months and months and months and months and months on end. I don't think we have hit 32 degrees here in at least 3 months. Not that I remember. It has been the deep freeze, so I'll be looking forward to that real soon for all you people that got a taste of spring and or summer over the last few weeks. You're now all suffering through an ice storm. So where do we start today? Yesterday we ended off the show reading an excerpt from Dr. Tenpenny's book, and I actually heard her then on a different show at some point yesterday when I was surfing around. She definitely has a lot of insight. I read her stuff frequently, and Dr. Tenpenny was talking about Project BioShield, a draconian Bush edict that put pretty much the big pharma in bed with the DOD and put vaccines on the front line for keeping us safe. We had started the show yesterday looking at the history of the United States biowarfare program and tried to tie that into what is going on today. And yes, our biowarfare program supposedly only lasted 27 years before it was ended by Richard Nixon. And like I said yesterday, a little bit of irony there, like we really trusted Nixon. But I saw a really super disturbing piece of news that was handed to me on the wire yesterday. Toot, 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 toot. That I think we need to start off here because this bugged me all night. Even when I was sleeping, I started thinking about this. Tell me that we are not at a point of complete insanity when it comes to science now. Like I've said, mad science gone mad, Frankenstein science everywhere. And here they even said it in the title. Frankenstein style human head transplant, quote, could happen in 2 years, unquote. Let's read this for a second. Hopefully everyone's had their breakfast. Hopefully we're all in a good state of mind because this was very disturbing. The first human head transplant could take place in just 2 years. It was reported on Thursday. Italian surgeon Sergio Canavero from the Turin Advanced Neuromodulation Group claims the Frankenstein-style procedure to graft a living person's head on a donor body will be soon ready. Will be ready soon. Sorry, it says will soon be ready. There we go. Couple things that this made me think of. First of all, if anyone has seen some of those horrifying Russian experiments from way back when, where they grafted a second dog head onto a dog, you will know that they've been experimenting with stuff like this for years. One of the things that we came across in the last 2 days of the stuff that we've been reading on the show, looking at biowarfare and that, was a Japanese army general who was also a scientist, a medical doctor. He was the father of the Japanese biowarfare program. His name was Shiro Ishii. And he actually came up again yesterday in something that we were reading. But Pigmine 2 actually had a video from a few weeks ago that had looked at not Shiro Ishii specifically, but his Unit 731, which was their Frankenstein science experiments gone completely off the wire. I guess they tortured a lot of Japanese there in China during World War II. At one point, I had been doing research with a friend and we were looking at a lot of these death camps and some of the horrifying things that were going on. So, how strange, because I did just post the video and we're going to listen to that about Unit 731 out of China and some of their horrifying experiments. I guess it's the 70-year anniversary since then, but how unbelievable that this story just came out on Thursday. That makes me think just of that. And like some of the things that are going on now, when we went back and looked through our biowarfare program historically in the United States, how much of that stuff seems to be going on again, or maybe it never even ended back from World War I and World War II. Plum Island being quietly moved from Plum Island, which we found out yesterday is actually a military fort out there, to the University of Kansas. And they're going to continue the work until their new bio facility is built for Department of Homeland Security. I mean, there's some pretty nasty dots that are connecting right now. All right, so let's get back to this Sergio Canavero from the Turin Advanced Neuromodulation Group. Wonder if he's friends with Kurzweil. That'd be interesting. Anyway, all right. So the breakthrough surgery is being pioneered to help extend the lives of people. And remember, too, all this crazy science is done for people who need to be helped, people who have lost arms, who are paraplegics. We have to help all the sick people in the name of mad science. The breakthrough surgery is being pioneered to help extend the lives of people who had suffered degeneration of the muscles and nerves, or those who have advanced cancers. The New Scientist, which is a publication that I read frequently, reported Dr. Canavero plans to announce the project at the American Academy of Neurological and Orthopedic Surgeon Conference in Annapolis, Maryland in June. Mr. Canavero published a paper on the technique he would use in the Surgical Neurology International Journal this month. The recipient's head and the donor body would be cooled at the start of the procedure to extend the time that cells can survive without oxygen. We have talked about the experiments that DARPA and NASA have been working on in regards to suspended animation. I actually had found that video. We mentioned it a while ago. And I had talked about a video I had watched on that. I posted it, and then we never got a chance to play it, so maybe we'll play that today. I had mentioned that they had used that in one of the Buffalo Bill injuries. I remember a few years ago, he had fallen and twisted his neck pretty badly. He had a bad head injury, and that's what they did. They dropped him into a big bucket of ice and cooled down his body temperature, so any neural damage would be minimized. They had done the same thing with that Gabby Giffords, the I don't know what she was. Was she a congresswoman? She was something. You remember Gabby Giffords when she got shot in the face by Loop de Lou mind control agent, whatever his name was, the one with the crazy looking eyes. So don't let me forget. We'll get back there. All right, so let's finish with this head transplant. The recipient's head and the donor body would be cooled at the start of the procedure to extend the time that cells can survive without oxygen. Tissues around the neck would be dissected, and major blood vessels would be joined using tiny tubes. The spinal cords would then be cut, and the recipient's head moved onto the donor body. The ends of the spinal cord would be fused together using a chemical called polyethylene glycol. You know, I really want to look into this procedure because we started seeing a lot of polyethylene involved in nanotechnology as well, which so the polyethylene glycol encourages fat within the cell membranes to mesh. And after this, the person will be put into a coma for around 4 weeks to prevent them from moving while they heal. Mr. Canavero said that he would expect the patient to be able to move and feel their face when they awoke. They would speak with the same voice, and they should be able to walk within a year. Guys, this literally gave me nightmares last night. I mean, are we really at this crazy point in science where we can hack off heads and put them on another body? I mean, that's just not right. And I mean, even if you were like a God, it's early. What's his name? The scientist out of Oxford, the one who says now that we got to get off this rock in 200 years, otherwise we're doomed. The one who talks with the robot voice. Oh, shit. I don't remember. Wait, I'm going to have to go to chat. Cupid doll. Cupid doll up for the taking. What the hell's his name? You know who I'm talking about. Damn it. Nobody knows. We lost the Cupid doll. Whatever. We'll find his name. I want to finish reading this story. What the hell's his name? Now it's going to drive me nuts. The scientist. The one from Oxford. The one on the computer that's in the wheelchair. That's all crippled. I don't even think he would want his head removed and put on a new body. Though maybe. Mr. Canvera says he would expect the patient to be able to move and feel their face when they awoke, and they would speak with the same voice and should be able to walk within a year. He first proposed the idea of the surgery in 2013, but at the time, other experts dismissed the idea. He told the New Scientist, quote, "If society doesn't want it, I won't do it. But if the people don't want it in the U.S. or Europe, that doesn't mean it won't be done somewhere else. I am trying to go about this the right way. But before going to the moon, you want to make sure people will follow you." The first successful head transplant involving the head of a monkey onto another was carried out in 1970 at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. Oh, I didn't know that. The monkey lived for 9 whole days until its immune system rejected the head. So what do you think of them apples? It's pretty damn disturbing. So anyone who has questioned... Oh, yes, Stephen Hawking's. Thank you, Dale. Anyone who has questioned my mad science gone mad story, let this be a lesson. I mean, this is just beyond horrifying. They're hacking off heads. And here's the question. He's so certain that this is going to work. Has he been already doing this somewhere in a secret lab? Somewhere? Because remember, there are no rules against this stuff. There's no international coalition that is preventing mad science from happening. Yet, hey, let's run after ISIS and all the teenagers that are on the internet supposedly becoming radicalized. Let's let the FCC, a government entity, take over the internet to protect us. But we have crazies like this hacking off people's heads and putting them onto new bodies. Here we go. I'm going to drop that into chat. That story was in the Telegraph, but it also was in New Scientist. I'm sure you can find it. I just, honestly, like I said, I can't believe that they're even publishing this. Like, it's so exciting. I wonder if this is part of the immortality experiment that they've been working on. Remember, there's all kinds of financing behind that in the realms of Google. We should see if that cadaver dude, his name was Can something, but he sounded like a cadaver dude. We should find out whether or not he is friends with Kurzweil at all. All right, so everything here is like syrup this morning. So I'm going to have to bounce between things. But here, so talking about mad science gone mad, let's hear a little bit about some of the experimentation that happened during World War II in Unit 731 by the Chinese, Japanese. He might have been Japanese. I thought he was Chinese. Maybe it was a Japanese doctor that was doing experiments on the Chinese. I don't know if it specifically says, but here, we're going to check this out. Chinese scars endure 70 years after Unit 731's liberation from Shiro Ishii's human experimentation. And the reason why we're talking about all this is because of these people out there who are saying that vaccines are safe. We've seen that the FDA has allowed all kinds of research to be published that has been found to be fraudulent, yet they never redacted or released any type of statements stating that stuff that's been published in scientific journals was not true. We've seen all kinds of experimentation that the federal government has done on the population historically. We read about that a few days ago. spraying populations, injecting populations, and not giving them a cure just to see what would happen when they were exposed to these pathogens. Then we see yesterday our biowarfare program supposedly ended after only 27 years, except that we then brought in the edict of Project BioShield with Bush that ties the vaccine industry right in with the Department of Defense. So anyone who thinks that any of this stuff is going to be for our benefit and who stands and points at an anti-vaxxer who's questioning what they're putting into our babies without giving us proper inserts, without giving us proper information, by not making the VERS database mandatory for putting in adverse reactions, anybody who is questioning whether or not we are sane has a screw loose when you look at the history. And that is the problem. History repeats and people don't pay attention. So anyway, here we go. This is just probably from February 6th, it says, of a Pigmine 2 about Unit 731 and the human experiments. Might take a second here. Everything is like syrupy slow today. Here it comes. Maybe. I think the cold gums up the pipes. It's trying really hard. I almost didn't even get to my article this morning. Here it comes, here it comes. If not, we'll have to read about Stephen Hawking. All right, we might have to. Oh, here it comes.
A reminder of the horrors of war. Li Pengge was a young railroad worker who suffered an agonizing death at the hands of Japanese doctors during World War II.
Whoops. I don't know what's going on here. Everything's locking up on me.
Without anesthetic. His daughter, Li Feng-chin, hadn't been born when he was taken to Unit 731, a covert base used to conduct human experiments. But the animosity remains.
I was born without a father. This debt of blood must be paid by Japan.
Set up in northeastern China by the occupying Japanese military, Unit 731 was used for research into germ warfare, weapons capabilities, and the limits of the human body. Doctors kept meter-long yellow rats to breed plague, which was later unleashed on Chinese civilian populations. Prisoners were frozen, drowned, and infected with fatal diseases. Tokyo has repeatedly apologized for its part in
the sauce. I don't know what's going on here. My machine is just beyond slow at the moment. Oh, come on. I might have to play this whole video all over again. It says, experiencing interruptions. Yes, YouTube. I'm sure it's intentional. Come on. Don't piss me off on a Friday. Yeah, I can't even get a page to load here. Hold on one second. I'm going to have to sing for you guys, I think. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Holy crap, holy crap. Where is the baseball bat? It's interesting how this just like out of the blue happens. All right. This really like takes it all out of me when it does this. I think that's their plan. All right, come on. All right, we're going to try this one more time.
A reminder of the horrors of war. Li Pengge was a young railroad worker who suffered an agonizing death at the hands of Japanese doctors during World War II. He was cut apart without anesthetic. His daughter, Li Fengqin, hadn't been born when he was taken to Unit 731, a covert base used to conduct human experiments. But the animosity remains.
I was born without a father. This debt of blood must be paid by Japan.
Set up in northeastern China by the occupying Japanese military, Unit 731 was used for research into germ warfare, weapons capabilities, and the limits of the human body. Doctors kept metre-long yellow rats to breed plague, which was later unleashed on Chinese civilian populations. Prisoners were frozen, drowned, and infected with fatal diseases. Tokyo has repeatedly apologized for its part in the Second World War and acknowledges that it caused tremendous damage and suffering, but it has never officially acknowledged that atrocities took place at Unit 731, much to the anger of China.
We should respect
This is unbelievable.
history. Facts are facts, and facts can't be changed or fabricated.
Tokyo's nationalist Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, says he is preparing a new statement on the war, raising hackles in Beijing. China regularly calls on Tokyo to confront history, while observers say the ruling Communist Party seeks to legitimize its power by nurturing anti-Japanese sentiment, which finds a ready audience here.
What they are saying is wrong. They should face up to history, but I think they are trying to escape from it.
Japanese troops attempted to destroy the camp as they fled the advancing Soviet Red Army. Failure to do so left a very real reminder of one of the most brutal periods of the last century.
Now, the reason why I played that is because, first of all, I didn't know a lot about how vicious the Japanese were in World War II. I guess they had all kinds of crazy, like, death torture camps. But don't think that that type of stuff didn't go on here. You know, don't think that this mad science is something that's only happening in some faraway laboratory in, you know, way back history somewhere. Absolutely not. I mean, there was a story that came out back in the middle of February, and this was pretty crazy. And the way it was spun is that this congressman who was putting out this bill, and if it loads here, we can read this. They made this guy out to be a lunatic, but listen to this. After all that we've read in regards to nanotechnology and genomics and all the crazy stuff they're doing in petri dishes and trying to insert into people, it says if you lived in Georgia district represented by Republican Tom Kirby, rest assured that your government, via Mr. Kirby's zany style of leadership, is getting out in front of the growing problem of genetically engineered glowing human beings. That's right. Representative Kirby introduced a bill into the state legislature preemptively banning the mixing of human and, for instance, jellyfish embryos. Forget about roads, schools, good jobs, and that kind of shit. This is a real problem. Or is it? Even Mr. Kirby himself isn't so sure. He told local affiliate WSB TV, quote, I have had people tell me it is, but I have not verified that for sure, says Representative Tom Kirby. It's time we either get in front of it or we're going to be chasing our tails. You could file this away with all the dipsy doodles who want to stamp out Sharia law in South Carolina, but that would be missing out on the special kind of stupid that Mr. Kirby brings to the grand old party. Now, seriously? They're calling this guy stupid, and saying he's a loop-de-loo. But they're doing stuff like this. They don't get it. Like, they are really doing stuff like this in labs. Just because it doesn't make headline news does not mean that they're not experimenting with this shit. I mean, look at the story we started the show with. They're literally, he says, within 2 years, they're going to be able to transplant a human head onto a donor body. Okay? That's stuff of science fiction insanity. Representative Kirby posted this on his website regarding, quote, the ethical treatment of embryos, unquote. In Georgia, we are taking the lead on this issue. Human life at all stages is precious, including as an embryo. So he's probably coming at this from a pro-lifer standpoint, I would imagine. We need to get out in front of the science and technology before it becomes something that no one wants. The mixing of human embryos with jellyfish cells to create a glow in the dark human. We say not in Georgia. This bill is about protecting human life while maintaining good, valid research that does not destroy life. Now, he's got every point right on the money, though. I mean, they are approving three people DNA for creating babies. They're putting implants, chips, neural implants into brains. They're mixing spider goats. And who the hell knows what else? Malaria goats, too. Researchers have been able to splice jellyfish embryos with genetic material from rabbits, mice, cats, pigs, and rhesus monkeys for well over a decade, and this isn't anything new. And I remember they had glow-in-the-dark sushi, too, we saw. But the belief that science is trying currently to build a glow-in-the-dark human, as Kirby puts it, is, I don't know what that means. Like, he says, where did this idiot hear about this problem? From an email forwarded by his grandpa? From radio frequencies that all can hear? From Alex Jones wannabe podcasters? I mean, are they kidding me? This is just unbelievable. They're already making chimeras. I mean, when I first started doing radio 4+ years ago, they had just discovered a lab in the UK that had like 80 or so petri dishes of animal-human hybrids that they've been working on. So the fact that they, again, like we had said, anything like this, they try to mix as a conspiracy theory, and anyone who brings any of this up is a lunatic. And again, they're pushing it again. This is dangerousminds.net pushing this one. There actually is a local video here. So maybe we can hear this one. Here, let's see. Or maybe not. I might just give up on the videos today. Come on. It's just sitting there all black. Oh, well. I guess we're going to have to skip that one. Sorry, guys. That really puts a damper in my Fridays. When I can't play clips, I've got multiple days without playing clips. I don't think it's going to happen. Wow, this bites. I can't even get a webpage to load now. I don't know. We've had some funky stuff over the last couple days since Anti-Media posted their story about the CIA Black Ops site in Chicago. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. All right. So, well, let's move on to something else then. Guess I'm going to have to kill that. Maybe we can get this one to go. I was digging through the archives the other day, doing some sorting on playlists, and found this video that I've been looking for forever. Came back to life on Pigmine 5, the channel that was dead that's now been brought back from who knows where. Come on, you can do it. Suspended animation is no longer fantasy. And as we find out,
line became a hot topic in our news.
And as we found out, now they're using suspended animation on bodies that they're replacing heads on. All right, here we're going to let this spool just a little bit. All right, we're going to try it.
Newsroom today. Check it out. Humans will be kept between life and death in the first suspended animation trials. Suspended animation, At a hospital in Pittsburgh, surgeons are trying this as a last resort on patients who would otherwise be dead.
CPR buys time because the body can't tolerate not having blood flow for even more than just a few minutes. By cooling them, we can buy time by slowing down the processes that occur when there's no blood flow to the vital organs like the heart and brain. This will allow the surgeons to repair injuries and save the patients.
They use cold saline to do that. Very strange. For more on this, we just had to call the doctor, and I was joined earlier by Dr. Sujatha Reddy from Atlanta for more details. I first asked her how this procedure is different from like an induced coma, which is one we've heard so much about regarding Formula One driver Michael Schumacher. Let's listen.
So when a patient has a brain injury, putting them into a coma is often done to give the brain kind of a downtime so it can heal. And what we're talking here with this preservation with the saline is really kind of the same thing, but slightly different, obviously. What we're doing here is trying to prevent further injury by sort of chilling the body at a lower temperature. And here we're using actually about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And by doing that, you're giving the doctors a chance to repair a major injury. So when we put an induced coma on a patient, we're helping the brain heal. Here we're trying to buy some time.
And
time to repair, let's say, a gunshot wound.
Well, so much for FCC net neutrality. To me, it seems like, honestly, they've throttled my connection way back. We actually went off the air yesterday, too, for about 20 minutes. We lost everything. And the day before that, the website went down for a bit. And then my FTP broke for all of our archives to be pushed up to YouTube. And Antimedia's website went down, and that's all since that story was published. Not saying, but just saying. It's interesting how everything works just absolutely perfectly like it should, and then nobody does anything and everything breaks mysteriously for no reason whatsoever. All right, here, we're going to, now that we've spooled a little bit more, sucking the orange through a straw, let's try a little bit more of this.
So it's a similar principle, but this newer process with the saline fluid hasn't been really done before.
It's very exciting to read about what types of injuries exactly is this procedure being used with.
So what they're hoping to use it on are major traumas, like either major internal hemorrhaging from, let's say, a car accident or a gunshot wound, something where the patient comes in and is essentially lost most of their blood volume or is actively bleeding and is in cardiac arrest. So it's going to be really people that are on death's doorstep, if you will.
Okay, so this was first tried on pigs back in 2002, and it was an apparent success. Obviously, it's a big leap trying this on humans. There's a lot of consent that had to be given to the communities where this hospital is located in to let people know that they would be doing this if anyone came in with a traumatic injury. From what I understand, this will only be used on patients that are considered clinically dead. How do they legally test this out on humans to make sure that it's allowed?
So all institutions have something called the IRB. It's the Institutional Review Board, and any research has to go through that. And in that panel are multiple experts, ethicists, and I do believe that this has to be approved by them, and I think even other governing bodies like the FDA had to approve this trial. But I think when you're talking about patients who have no other hope, you could see ethically how it could be done, because these are patients that are, like you said, are basically already declared dead, and you're trying this last-ditch effort hoping to make an impact here.
What bothers me so much about this is that that's exactly how they're doing all this. Desperation, desperate people, sick people, dying people, people who have no other choice. Step right up. We'll give you new eyes because you've been blind. We'll give you a new arm because you don't have it. And the thing is, you know, if it were me in that situation, I don't know how I would feel. But on the other hand, they are using the desperation of people to forward their Frankenstein science. You know, they said that they had a review board that this goes through. The people are clinically dead, and, you know, then we'll be trying it on them. But, you know, when you look at the future ramifications of some of this stuff, suspended animation is something that they've been talking about for a long time for long distance space travel. I mean, that is the end result of why they are trying, because they haven't been able to put brains into robot bodies yet, right? We looked at that whole 2045 project. I mean, once we get there, we won't need suspended animation anymore. But for the time being, we need Frankenstein science.
So, how are doctors measuring the success of this procedure beyond just bringing someone back? So, what sort of tests would need to be done to have this become a more widespread practice? Because, as with the pigs they did the experiments on, they said that the cognitive abilities returned. How would they test this out to make sure that the humans coming back are okay?
Right, because obviously in a pig, cognitive function, it's not as necessary as with a human, right? Pig's cognitive function is going to be a little bit different. We hope we have higher brain power than that. What they're going to look for is obviously memory issues, brain issues. Really, ultimately, is a person going to wake up and function normal? Still put the person that's undergone this resuscitative process under a lot of neurological testing, but it'll be basically how their brain is functioning. Is their memory normal? Are they able to do simple tasks and just be a normal person? Or are we bringing these people back, and could they have major, deficits like brain damage or have traumatic brain injury, and then maybe this is not the way to go, or we need to reestablish how we do this to hopefully achieve full cognitive function? Because if you're going to save someone's life, ultimately you'd want them to be at their full functioning. But they'll be putting them through obviously numerous tests regarding brain function, memory, and tasks and things like that.
When it comes to putting someone in a suspended state, so as you mentioned, they can fix the structures that have been compromised, such as if it's a gunshot wound, etc. How long can a person be kept in this suspended state?
Well, obviously, you're going to want to keep them in that state for as short a time as possible, because even though the body can sort of still function at that lower temperature, obviously not more than I would imagine. Again, this is part of the research. Probably not more than an hour or two at the most. And obviously, the shorter time they're under this process, the better. But most people have heard about like a young child or an adult that's fallen into like a lake and into the freezing cold water, and somehow they're able to be alive in that water because their body temperature has gone down. What happens when the body temperature lowers is your cells function at a slower level, and you can actually survive longer that way without oxygen. So they're sort of mimicking that process, hoping to put the body sort of to sleep while they do these major surgical repairs. So again, the shorter the time, the better, but I'd imagine it's going to be anywhere from an hour to two, not much more than that.
Well, it's very exciting to see how these clinical trials are carried out and see what the results will be. Dr. Sujatha Reddy from Atlanta, thank you very much.
Thank you.
She says it's very exciting. I don't find this shit exciting at all. It's horrifying. This stuff is absolutely horrifying to me. When we start thinking back throughout history, and I mean that video we listened to about Japan and their torture chambers, I mean, this stuff, is now happening under the guise of, longevity and science, and wow, we could make you live longer because we could replace your head with another head. I mean, it's just, this is not right at all. All right, let's get over to Stephen Hawking. I had read something the other day about Stephen Hawking that he's just a miracle with this disease that he has. I thought it was like a Krabbe's disease, that his disease, he's actually the longest lived individual with that disease ever. He's in his 70s now, and he should have only lived, if that, even 10 years. But Stephen Hawking came out the other day. Actually, I guess this isn't a brand new story. I saw the story the other day. This is from 2010. Stephen Hawking says humanity will not survive without leaving Earth. If humanity is to survive long term, wait, I got to disconnect. I need to disconnect Skype here. If humanity is to survive long term, it must find a way to get off planet Earth, and fast, according to famed astrophysicist Stephen Hawking. In fact, human beings have less than 200 years to figure out how to escape our planet, Hawking said in a recent interview with Big Think. Otherwise, our species could be at risk for extinction. Why do you think that is? Do you think we could be at risk for extinction because of all the shit that they're doing to the planet and all the contamination? I mean, they've let so many genies out of the bottle now that there's no putting any of this stuff back. Quote, it will be difficult enough to avoid disasters in the next 100 years, he says, let alone the next 1,000 or million. Our only chance of long-term survival is to not remain inward looking on planet Earth, but to spread out to space. Humans stuck on Earth are at risk for two kinds of catastrophes, Hawking said. First, the kind we bring on ourselves, such as devastating impacts from climate change, nuclear or biological warfare. I'm telling you, this biological warfare is going on in a very covert manner right now. And like we've been trying to connect the dots all week, all of these, never before seen diseases that have been springing up all over, I honestly think are things that A, they've orchestrated, and B, we are the human guinea pigs. We are the ones, it's open air testing like we read yesterday. Our whole biowarfare defense program that was ended back in 1969 is now just a defensive program for how to protect us against diseases with vaccines. It said that specifically. A number of cosmic phenomenon could spell our demise, too, he said. An asteroid could slam into Earth, blah, blah, blah. And do you guys remember back about a week or so ago, there was a story that came out of Oxford University about the 12 most likely ways for Earth to see an apocalypse. And it wasn't super volcanoes, it wasn't asteroids, it wasn't climate change. Number one was artificial intelligence. So getting us off this rock, I don't think is going to help stave off hell. I can't do that, Dave. I'd be way more worried about the science that we're farming here, right here and now, rather than something from outer space, in my personal opinion. What about also the Large Hadron Collider? Don't forget that is firing back up after 2-year hiatus in March of this year. And what they're going to deal with this year is studying dark matter. And, I don't know if I kept that story, but I found a real disturbing story on some of their new thoughts on dark matter and how dark matter interacts with the core of our planet. And as we pass through, it said that they believe that there's way more dark matter in the galactic plane, which we're passing through at the moment. And they believe now that when dark matter interacts with our planetary core, the interaction between the particles causes our core to heat up. And as the core heats up, it expresses more heat out into the planet. Well, could that be? If they're calling on global warming, could that be what's causing our planet to warm up? And by taking these technologies that we're using in the Large Hadron Collider, by taking technologies that are typically things that happen in outer space and bringing them down to our planetary level, I know people call anyone crazy, again, who calls bullshit on what they're doing at the Large Hadron Collider, but could those technologies literally destroy us? We're talking about cosmic explosions that are being done on a planet, not out in the middle of space somewhere, on a small little blue dot in the middle of a very large expanse. I call it absolute madness. Anyway, all right, I'm going to skip off of this. Let's hop back now to where we ended the show yesterday. And this is with Dr. Tenpenny's breakout on Project BioShield, something that was put through during the Bush administration. I'm going to hop back into the middle here. Project BioShield put forth 3 major components. Maybe I should start right at the top because it's only 2 paragraphs. All right. Until recently, the concept of mandatory and mass vaccination was thought to be far off in possibilities. Vaccination laws are regulated at a state level, and the federal government seemed to keep a watchful eye away from the subject. That now appears to be changing, but the push for mandates is not new. This has been coming for a long time. The groundwork to force everyone to be vaccinated began shortly after 9/11. Then President George Bush introduced Project BioShield during his State of the Union address in January of 2003. Project BioShield created a comprehensive joint effort between the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the private pharmaceutical industry to develop drugs and vaccines to be released in the event of a biological and chemical attack. Signed into law in July of 2004, the program was funded with $5.6 billion over 10 years. And like I said yesterday, from 2004 to 2014, how amazing all of these new vaccine technologies were being developed with sprinkled DARPA money. How amazing. We had swine flu, we had bird flu, we had Ebola, now we have measles. And if you dig into the technologies that's being used in these vaccines, the nanotech, the virus-like particles, and all this mad science that then they're injecting into our kids, the Gardasil vaccine, you start to see an ugly picture. And then if you back that up and you look at the historical biowarfare program and how it ended up as vaccines were a first line of defense against biowarfare as we go into a defensive posture, you start to see that this is no more, no better than what they were doing in experimental labs under the covers in World War II. Project BioShield put forth three major components. One, indefinite funding for medical countermeasures, vaccines, drugs, and technologies to be released as soon as experts agree they were quote-unquote safe enough. This is where all your fast-tracking came through. In other words, Project BioShield allowed Secretary of Health and Human Services to purchase and use unapproved and unlicensed vaccines and drugs. New authority was given to the National Institute of Health to speed research and development of drugs and vaccines for bioterrorism threats and authorize the fast tracking of drugs and vaccines, a fancy way to use medicines barely researched or tested in the event of an quote-unquote emergency. Between July 2004 and the end of 2006, which was the close of the 109th Congress, 11 bills were introduced. Only one passed, and we read about this. That was S. 3678, the Pandemic and All Hazard Preparedness Act. This was the one that allowed vaccine and pharmaceutical manufacturers to be immune from any and all liability. The legislation, called Division E, Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, PREPA, provided sweeping provisions. One, immunity from all liability. In the event of any outbreak, all drugs, vaccines, and biological products are completely protected, even if it kills you. I mean, people don't get how important a time we are in right now. If we lose our right to say no, we have slid right down that slippery slope into full-out fascism. The state is going to be able to have the complete rule over your body. And, the next step is over your thoughts. We were just listening to that suspended animation video, and she's like, it can only be done for a short period of time because we don't want to bring anybody back that then doesn't have their faculties or their memories. Well, remember, we just were reading the other day, and we dug in deep when they first talked about it, about being able to replace memories in Alzheimer's patients and some of the DARPA research that they're doing on PTSD soldiers that would erase and replace or just replace memories. I mean, every single piece of this is all groomed like it's going to help you. Oh, you poor sick people. The government is here to protect you. And we've been doing research and you can be part of our clinical trial. This is just legalized mad experimentation at your expense in your time of desperation. All right, number two of what was approved, the Secretary of Health and Human Services has the complete authority to declare an emergency. The Secretary of Health and Human Services is appointed, and they are a non-medical person who has no accountability to the general public, kind of just like the 5 guys that voted on the FCC bill. The president's hand-picked teammate will have the power to mandate vaccines and other medications for American people. Yes, like I said yesterday, all you people like me with oppositional defiance disorder, now listed in DSM-5, we will be force medicated because we are considered a danger. We could radicalize those around us by calling bullshit on some of the stuff that we're seeing. Number 3, immunity from all accountability. They need to up the fluoride in my water. Immunity from all accountability, even if a company's dirty facility creates a bad batch of contaminated vaccines that results in the death or injury to thousands of people, the drug company will have immunity from liability, as well as all lawsuits. Through the PrEP Act, drug companies have immunity from almost everything, perhaps even murder. The bill's language explicitly protects against frivolous lawsuits and sets rigorous standards for defining negligence. And even if a pharmaceutical company knowingly harms people, the company will be immune from legal prosecution unless the U.S. Attorney General initiates an enforcement action against the drug company in the name of the claimant. This means that the government has to go to bat for the plaintiff against the drug company for the lawsuit to move forward, and we know that will never happen. In simple terms, a plaintiff can only go forward with a claim if he or she can prove that the drug company performed an act of willful misconduct that resulted in an injury or a death. In other words, the injured party will have to prove that the vaccine maker intentionally caused them harm, and unbelievably, even then, the drug company can still be immune from accountability. And here's the thing. With all these secrecy acts being passed, like we saw in Japan and Australia, and now they're clamping down on the internet, and oh my God, the internet is radicalizing people all over. You better believe that there are going to be secrecy acts. The FOIA will probably be eliminated. I mean, FOIA barely works now where half or 3/4 of a document is all black Sharpie. But, I can still go out to a big pharma website and take a look at their pipeline, take a look at a story about their technologies. But we read a story yesterday about Department of Homeland Security releasing an oh my God story that scientists have been putting out their research on how to make different pathogens more virulent. And oh my God, now it could be used by ISIS or other radicalized groups to create bioterror. Well, what the hell did they think was going to happen? But see, they're going to use this to put fear into your hearts that the internet, the free exchange of information and ideas between people is now the threat. See something, say something, people. Did you notice, too, Department of Homeland Security has been putting out all kinds of new public service announcements about see something, say something. It's happening again now that Manit is gone. They're ramping it back up. They're ramping up the thought that we might be attacked. And they're taking over the last vestiges of our freedom, our bodies and the internet. That's about all we got left. And don't forget, they're going after the 223 rounds. So gun control, internet control, and control over your person. Even if a pharmaceutical company, I just read that, the mainstream media has been pushing for mandatory vaccinations for everyone from children to adults. And all these whack jobs out there screaming about anti-vaxxers, they didn't read anything about the FDA corruption, the butt slap, and the palm slipperiness. But they don't realize that it's also going to be them that's lined up and injected. And yes, it's true, there have been calls for arresting parents who do not vaccinate their children. There have been, too. And harassment of doctors who speak out against vaccines. and calls for revoking doctors' licenses who even dare to question the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. I also saw a doctor that they were going after because all he was proposing is that maybe we space them out better. We also listened to a story about another doctor who was saying, he came out in public and said, I'm not so sure. I don't vaccinate my kids, and I'm not so sure about these ingredients. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, there's an investigation into his practice. All right, back to the end of Dr. Tenpenny's article here. The question has to be asked, who stands to gain from this process? Who stands to gain from selling vaccines? And if you are injured, if you lose recourse for your vaccine injury by forcing you to give up your right to refuse, who gains benefit? Well, how about more than 50% of Congress who are allowed to insider trade, who are now millionaires? That's who I would say. The line item budget for R&D that used to be trillions of dollars for pharmaceutical companies that can now go down to zero, that makes them more profitable because they are testing it on the human populace. And as we bring in Obamacare, as we bring in electronic medical health records, and as they're all having one big fat orgy at your expense, that's who benefits. Sell it to the dumb people as it's for them, and it's going to be, you're going to live longer and be healthier. But guys, they are poisoning us beyond a shadow of a doubt. In my mind, and I am one of the most skeptical people, I think I've proven this through our research. And if we can play this, and I don't know, we're going to run out of time here. I got a minute. If it'll play, let's go. It's not going to play. Over 49% of the U.S. supposedly believes the government is trying to kill them, according to RT. And that it's medical conspiracy, and I would say so. All right, guys, sorry about all the technical glitches today. Hopefully by Monday, those oranges will get out of the pipe. I don't know what's going on. I might have to call the service provider and ask them why I've been throttled back. All right, guys, make sure you stick around. It is Friday. Everybody try to enjoy yourselves. Relax. I've had a headache for 3 days, and I think it's stress-related. Make sure you stick around. We got Josh on live at 6 p.m. Eastern with Anti-Tyranny News. We have Truth on the Tracks. United Front Radio, and they recorded me a new show, as well as Anti-Media Radio with Levon live tonight at 11, and all kinds of great stuff Saturday and Sunday. So I will catch up with you guys later. Make sure you have a beer. All right, everybody, take care.